When you walk into the reception at Square Mile, one of the first things you'll see on the shelving is this, which is an espresso machine. And it is by far the scariest, most weird and wonderful espresso machine I have ever owned. Now this was built by Kees van der Westen. You'll know him from building things like the Spirit, things like the Speedster. He builds really beautiful stuff, and there was an auction and he donated this machine to that auction, and I bought it in that auction. And it is a fully functioning coffee machine, and I want to show it to you because one, it's really cool, and two, it's a really interesting explanation for how espresso machines work. Because everything is completely exposed, and that's really scary, you can really see how a simple E61 style espresso machine works, how the plumbing works, what does what. So this hasn't run for like 5 years. So we need to do a little bit of TLC to this to get it running. So we're going to clean it up because it's dusty, and then we're going to work out what needs doing to it. It's missing some parts. We'll see if we can get it running. We'll see if we can pull some shots with it. And yeah, this is that machine. Oh, and most importantly, this thing was built in 13 hours from scratch. And he used a bicycle that he found in like a skip out the back of his building. And it still has the bell on the bicycle. How good is that? All right, so I'm going to clean this up, and then we're going to assess what parts we need to get it plumbed in and running and making some coffee. So that's a little bit cleaner. It's not the easiest thing to clean in the world, but most of the dust is gone. Some of it's just ugly, and that's kind of its charm. It's never going to be beautiful unless you stripped it completely to pieces and powder coated it in something better. We're just never going to do that to this. Now, when it comes to these things, the first thing you want to do is make sure that you have your hydraulics sorted. We want to make sure there is a supply of water to the machine, that water is covering elements before we turn it on. So right now, it's a bit bare bones. Now there's a water inlet here, just a threaded inlet which we can put a braided hose onto. That will come from the pump, which I don't seem to have. And actually in the past what I'd done is I'd put a quick connect on the pump control cable. This is the thing that powers the pump, turns the pump on when you want it to come on. So I need to find a pump and a pump head, and I need to wire it up, and then I need to find a couple of braided hoses and connect it to a cold water line. And then, you know, we're getting there. So I found an old Espresso pump in the workshop. I'm going to be able to just repurpose this. I'll need to change some parts, some fittings here, but that's not really a problem. Wire it up and we should be good to go. A distinct lack of compression. It compresses. That's water in, done. Now because this is going to be a quick setup, I'm just going to put some John Guest straight in there to supply it with water as quickly as possible. Now, don't judge me, this is just a really quick and dirty setup. This is nothing like I would do for like an actual installation. This is just a quick, I can bench test it and play with it kind of setup. So you've got some push fit coming in, and then just switched a few parts around, and then we have water going out to the machine. So this would be our next challenge, which is the quick connector that used to run to a pump that I have long since lost. So I'm going to cut this off and then just hardwire it into the old Espresso pump instead. And that should be good to go. So we've got some water in here now, so we're ready to turn it on, but we need one more thing. There's something missing up here. Now at the back of the machine, there's actually a space for a light bulb, and that light bulb will go on any time that the element is heating. So I need a light bulb. Okay, it's starting to get hot now, starting to get some pressure building on the steam boiler, and I should try and explain why I have a white tub here. Now, this machine is awesome, but the drip tray leaves a little to be desired. It is just a piece of mesh that has no connection to any sort of waste, so you need to put something under it to catch anything that you want to run out of the drip head. Now, this machine needed a good flush through. It had been a while since it had seen fresh water, so that's kind of a thing. And then what we can do is kind of walk you through the kind of hydraulic pathway of this machine, I hope, to try and explain how it works. Now, before I do that, I should probably explain the controls, which are a little bit unconventional. Okay, so everything is run from this thing here, and this thing activates these two little switches here. When you first push, you'll activate this switch, and all it does is essentially start PreInfusion by opening the group head solenoid, which is sort of over here. It's hard to see. That will allow any line pressure coming from your water mains to come through the machine and just drip out of the group head. When you push down enough to contact the second switch, that's what kicks on the pump. So you have kind of a two-stage infusion here. So if we go stage 1, you can hear that click. We've got some dripping from the group head. And then 2, pump goes on. So you have to hold it down to make the pump run. So you hold it down the whole shot. So that's what's going on here. Now this is an old E61 style thing here. So what you've got is one tube coming out of the top of the heat exchanger, running along into the back of the group head there. And then a tube underneath it, running down and all the way down back into the bottom of the boiler, of the heat exchanger. Now that is a thermosiphon. So that hot water can also be drawn off here to go through the little switch here heading to the group head to make coffee. So these things are kind of stable-ish, but you often need to flush them to sort of stabilize that temperature. It's called temperature surfing, and dual boiler machines now don't really need that. You can see our steam pressure there. That's basically what controls the whole machine. It's not the most accurate way to do temperature, but it's a thing that works. You've got essentially a relay controlling the power going to the element from the thermostat, and then you've got power going to either the pump or to a solenoid valve to open and close it. Now, one of the reasons this machine is just so terrifying is that it's really hot. Like, all of the hot bits are exposed. It's very easy to burn yourself on this, which is why it could never really be used by anyone, except me, probably me. So one of the most terrifying things about this machine is probably this valve here, which is a manual fill valve to fill the steam boiler. So you've got to keep an eye on your sight glass to make sure you've got enough water in there at all times. Now, steam is pretty simple. It comes out of the top of the steam boiler into a valve, which you just control in the normal way, and dramatic steam. So there's nothing else really left to do but pull some shots. I'll need to get a grinder and some coffee and some cups and all that good stuff. And meanwhile, I'll tell you about this video's sponsor, which is Squarespace.
Whenever I need to build a website, buy a domain, I use Squarespace. Whether it's a website to showcase the World Atlas of Coffee or a portfolio for me to share what it is that I do for a living, Squarespace is fantastic software to build that website with. Their fantastic templates cover a whole range of needs that you might have for a website. It might be like me that you're showcasing a portfolio, but it might be that you want to build a website for your cafe or your restaurant. Using these templates, it's incredibly easy to customize them, to have those sites look exactly how you want, but you have the reassurance and peace of mind that that website will look great across any browser and any device. But you should find out for yourself. Sign up for a free trial and build a website. And when you're ready to launch, use the link in my description or use the code James Hoffmann, and you can get 10% off any domain or website purchase. Thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video.
All right, I guess let's pull a shot. All right, we're going with a big 20 gram dose. Clean up my mess a little bit. It's gonna be a messy day. Coffee in. We're gonna pull by pre-infusing until we get those first few drops of coffee. It's a big dose, it's gonna take a little while. And then as soon as we see that saturation happen, crank up the pressure. We made coffee. Smells pretty good. That is pretty good. So there it is. This is by far the weirdest, wildest, most terrifying coffee machine that I own. I hope this was interesting. I hope this was fun. I don't really know what to do with this. It's a beautiful ornament. It's a terrifying espresso machine. So this is probably the last time in a good long while it'll make coffee, which is a shame. Anyway, this was fun. I hope you had fun. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you have a great day.